Okay, so if you guys have been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that I've been wanting to lower the Mustang for a while, and I figured that before I do it, I should go ahead and measure the height a little bit just so that I can get a sense of how low the car is gonna go. Ooh, it's a little much. So that's about 3 inches in the front, and in the rear, it's also about 3 inches. Also, Owen reminded me that I have to get before and after pictures, so shout out to you, Owen. These are for you. He demanded it. He was like my king. So out of all the jobs I've done on cars, I think that suspension stuff is kind of what I've worked on the least, which is making me a little bit nervous to do this, especially at home, because I only have 2 jack stands, so that's going to be kind of interesting. But also I'm just nervous. I've never done lowering springs on a solid rear axle car before. I've done coilovers on one with independent rear suspension, but this should be fairly straightforward. I watched a couple of videos about it, and there's literally like 4 bolts for the back to like lower down the whole axle, so I'll show you guys what I mean in just a minute. So before I raise the car up, I'm actually going to loosen the lug nuts on the back because it's easier to loosen them if you have the weight of the car holding the wheels still instead of like raising the car up and then try to like keep the wheel from spinning while you loosen them. And of course you have to repeat the process on the other side. So I've got the front wheels chocked, and I'm going to slide a jack under there to the differential, and that's how I'm going to raise the back up. Okay, so now that we've got the weight of the car rested on those jack stands, I'm gonna go ahead and take the rear wheels off. That way I can lower the rear axle down a bit further. I want to show you guys something cool. So now that I've got the wheel off, you can really see the different parts of the suspension. So this right here is the shock, and I'm not replacing these. The part that I'm replacing are the lowering springs. So on this car, since it's a solid rear axle, that means that the whole axle on the back is connected at the differential, and it's all one big piece. So with that in mind, the only thing I have to do to get that spring out of there is I have to disconnect the sway bar, and I have to unbolt the shock right here, and then the entire rear suspension will lower down using the jack, and then I can just put the new springs in, raise it back up, and put the bolts back in. So it's actually a little bit easier to install lowering springs, in my opinion, on a solid rear axle car versus independent rear suspension, because when the car has independent rear suspension, you have to do each side one at a time, but with this, you can just lower down the whole thing and take out both springs. Okay, so at this point, I have the shock and the sway bar unbolted on both sides, so I should be able to lower down the entire differential and the suspension components with it. So we're just gonna slowly turn this to the left. Oh, yeah, slowly. Alright boys, so that was a pain. For some reason, the differential wouldn't go any lower because the bushings on the lower control arms were actually holding the whole thing up. So I guess that's a good thing because these bushings are still in really good shape. But either way, the springs are out. So now I'm going to install these new lowering springs. Bird, can you not? Aha. So these are the SR Performance 1.5" drop lowering springs. They don't really provide that much in the way of performance. If you want to get performance with a lowering spring, you need to upgrade the shocks as well. This is mostly just for a look, and a lot of people are like, you should have done coilovers, but I'm not going to spend $700 on coilovers when eventually I want to put this car on air ride. So that's just my personal preference. You can roast me in the comments, but I think these are really nice, and eventually I'm going to make the calipers blue so the springs will match the calipers, and I think it'll look really nice. Okay, so I did a little bit of research because I couldn't figure out if the tight wound part of the spring went at the bottom or the top. So I found out that these are a progressive spring rate. So that means that they mimic stock at the top, but supposedly when you're really going around corners and having a blast, they get tighter the more you ride on them. Although if you don't upgrade the shock, you're not really going to notice much of a difference, but none be the case. The tight wound part goes at the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and do my best to get these new springs in. Well, those were much easier to install than to remove. Okay, so now I'm just going to use the jack and do the exact opposite of what I did to get it down. So I'll just raise it up a bit, realign the shocks on both sides, and then put the bolts back in. Alright boys, I am absolutely disgusting. The sway bar was fighting me a little bit, but I got the new springs in. All the suspension is bolted back up, so we're going to go ahead and put the wheels back on, and then we'll lower it down. Alrighty, so both the wheels are back on, so now I'm just going to raise it up a little bit, take the jack stands out, and then I'll lower it down onto the new springs. with the new lowering springs installed, it does look a little bit lower. The front is still stock, so maybe the back will squat a little bit more once it's all the way down, but already I think that's looking a lot nicer. All right, so before the rear was sitting at about 3 inches, and now it's dropped down to about 2.5, but these are gonna settle a bit, and I know that once the front is installed, it'll level it out a bit more. So this should drop down a little bit more, but it looks better already, even with 1/2 inch. Okay, so I took a little break, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull the car out and then spin it around and pull the front in so I can do the front. And by the way, I went ahead and washed my hands because I've been seeing some of you guys comment about how when I work on my car, I don't wash my hands before I drive it, and I do apologize about that. I'm sorry, I'll try not to trigger you guys. Ooh, boys, it's only halfway done. This is gonna look sick. Everybody's gonna love it. This car is already super low in the front. It's low enough to where like I keep hitting the bumper just trying to raise it up from the subframe. So I'm thinking what I'm gonna do is that when I lower it down, I'm gonna put a couple boards underneath the tires. That way the jack will have a little bit more clearance to come out of here because it's gonna be super close. Oh, I almost forgot. I need to loosen the wheels. Oh my gosh, it is high out here. So with the front, we have to take out the shocks. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take off the wheels and then I'll unbolt the shock and then I'll pop the hood and undo the screws on the top of this and then the whole shock will come out. I forgot to press record, but once you get the spring compressed, you're just gonna wanna loosen this bolt on the top and then take the top part of the strut off, and then you can take the spring off the strut assembly. Okay boys, so we got the wheels back on both sides. Shocks and with new springs are installed. So before we lower it down, we're actually gonna put some wood planks underneath the wheels because I had trouble getting the jack under the car with the stock ride height. So I just don't want to tear up my front bumper or get the jack stuck under the car. There we go. I'm really glad that we did the wood plank. This jack would not have come out of there. That was very close. That was like or less than 1/2 inch from the bumper. I still don't know how to ride a motorcycle. If you guys want me to make a video about learning how to drive a motorcycle, leave a comment down below. I'm running out of daylight real quick, but check it out. This is the new stance. Ooh, that looks so good. Oh man, that is so much better than before.
The next day.
So it's awfully close, but this car is technically still high enough to back out of the driveway, which is saying something because this driveway is super, super steep. So, you know, I'm not as low as Alex over here, but at least I can go over speed bumps still.
I can go over speed bumps.
Sideways. Ooh.
I was gonna head up.
No way.
I'm a Ford van, so. Yeah.
Damn.
Says the one who has 2 Ferraris.
Yeah, whatever. I have a Ford truck, okay?
Alright.
I got a Ford truck. This is sick.
There you go. Me too.
That's so awesome. God damn.
Oh, you're gonna try to give me RICA. Yeah, that's color.
Ferrari F430, my car. We'll see how this one sounds. Some of you guys maybe have heard it around town. Go ahead. Yikes, kids. How's that? Was that okay? Alright, here's last week's winner. This thing is the reason I didn't want to get into the competition this week. This thing is mean. Yikes, I'd hate to be a neighbor. Good Lord. Yikes. Is that it? No more. You like that? Yeah. Woo! This little Mazda kicked butt last week. Anybody impressed? I am. Sounds really good. I think your neighbors love you, that's for sure. Alright, let her rip. Yikes. Rolling coal. That's always a crowd pleaser. Yikes. Alright, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars here. They're all pretty cool. And do we have any crowd favorites? The Mustang again, week 2? Yikes. Let's do a round of applause. I'll point at it. So, we got the Ford GT. What was this thing again? Yeah. What? Ticket Mobile. How do you guys love seeing these parked in front of your car? Woo! Fun, y'all? Anybody like that? It's got that screw noise. It's not loud, but it's got that cool supercharger. Any votes here? Alright. I'm gonna wait on that one. How about the Mazda? That was a good sound, right? Pretty amazing. I'll take it. You guys like the coal roller? Yeah? Yeah, that's pretty good. Thanks for coming down, man. Appreciate it. How about this guy? You guys get smoked out? It's always nice to get smoked out. Thank you. Alright, let's see what happens. Anybody like the Mustang? No? I didn't hear it. You know what? Nobody heard it. You need to hear it again. Nobody heard it.
Okay boys, so it's been a couple days since I picked up the camera, so this video is probably going to come out a few days later than I wanted to, so I do apologize for that, but I'm back at the spot where I started the video because I want to go ahead and get the after measurement real quick, so let's check it out. So the front of the car already is much lower than it was at stock. It was at about 3 inches from the top of the tire to the fender before, and now it's at about 1.5 inches. So that one's right about where it needs to be. But if you look at the back of the car, you'll notice that this one only dropped about 1 inch. So this is about 2 inches from top of the tire to the bottom of the fender. So that's a little bit unfortunate. I was hoping that it would drop it down about 1.5 inches because advertise said that it was going to be 1.5 inches like all 4 corners. It is what it is. I'm not dissatisfied with it. It looks a lot better than it did when it was stock, and I actually kind of like the front leaning stance, but it would be kind of nice to have the back be slightly lower. And I still have a couple more mods that are going to be coming for the suspension because as it stands right now, I can't get the alignment in spec with the springs in there. So So I'm gonna need to get some caster camber plates for the front, and then I'm gonna need to get some lower control arm relocation brackets for the back. So there's gonna be more suspension things coming in the future, but I don't really drive around that much as it is, so I'm not super concerned about it right now. As far as the springs go, just as I said earlier in the video, it drives exactly as it did when it was stock. I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat it and sell you something, because these springs are pretty much just for look. If you want your car to perform better and handle better, you'll need to upgrade the shocks and struts as well. I honestly just picked up these springs because I was so tired of this car looking like a monster truck. I do, however, think that they're worth the money. Although, SR Performance didn't send me a freaking sticker. I spent $170 on these springs and there was no sticker in the box. Like, are you kidding me? SR, please. I want to rep the brand. I want to put that sticker on my window. I need that sticker. That's about all I got for you guys today. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up here. I'm going to a couple car meets this weekend, so that video will be coming out sometime next week. So definitely stay tuned for that. If you're not already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Leave a thumbs up if you like today's video. But anyway, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace out and dream big.